when we think about suppliers in a business, we imagine a guy realizing that he is in need of stuff, for instance, a CRM software. So the guy goes through a list of potential businesses that can solve the problem, sends an email, there is some back and forth communication, and boom, the company shows up, solves the software problem. But here's another version of that situation. The person realizes that there is a need for a CRM software and proposes the problem to their IT department. Series of conversations follow, some programming is done, and yep, a new CRM software for the company. Now, the question is, does that mean that the IT department is also a supplier? Okay, is the IT department a supplier? The point is, suppliers can be internal or suppliers can be external. Let's start with internal suppliers. Internal suppliers can also be referred to as in-house suppliers. Think of it this way, okay? So, when the company decides to use their own department to fix a problem, so the company in this case is the customer, the department is the supplier, or more specifically, the department that needs whatever the other department, okay, is going to solve, like in the case of the IT department, that department becomes the customer, the other department becomes the supplier. Now, the issue of using internal suppliers just comes down to the company's make or buy decisions, okay? What are their policies regarding the make or buy decision? Should we make this thing in-house or should we outsource it, basically buy? So if a company needs a website as part of its digital marketing strategy, so rather than going with an outside company to do the job, the company uses their IT team for the job. So in that case, they had a make or buy decision and they opted to make. Of course, it sort of just comes down to the question is always, are these products critical? Are these products core as far as the company is concerned? And that would mean that the company is in need of control. So if the company wants to control the production process, they are better off making those things, okay? And it's, again, look, it's not like if everything can be made internally. So there are a lot of, decisions that are made when it comes to deciding on whether to do it internally or to do it externally. So the point is that producing the products or services in-house allows the organization to keep a greater degree of control over the process than if it was outsourced to an external suppliers. So if you're dealing with services, okay, that you frequently need, or you're dealing with products, basically product or services that basically whose specifications keep on changing, then sometimes doing them internally becomes a good idea. At this point, let me quickly just point out that if you're interested in learning more about, say, business agreements, okay, then there are links provided in the video description. Okay, one will take you to commercial contracting in procurement. So you'll get series of videos, practice exercises, PDF notes, and all that to guide you through the steps involved in commercial contracting. There is also one which will take you to mastering contract law. Okay, so everything to do with contract law, you can access them there. Link is provided in the video description. If you are interested, go check them out. Now, let's move on. What are the advantages of a business using internal suppliers? The first thing is that since the business doesn't depend a lot on external suppliers, there is a great control and continuity of supply. The second thing is that since with internal suppliers, it's the business supplying the business. Basically, it's a department supplying another department, and they belong in the same, umbrella. Then they share the same culture and the same values, and that is going to allow for a good relationship. Again, there is improved quality control due to having a higher degree of control over the manufacturing process. If you're dealing with secrets, things like patents, okay, intellectual property, those ones can be easily protected since you're doing it internally. Next, cost can be controlled. Again, if you're dealing with the external suppliers, one of the things that they're going to add to their cost is a markup, okay? So once they have their cost, they'll add the markup and that will determine their profit. That may not really be the case with internal suppliers because in this case, it's just a department being financed to do a job. They're not really trying to be profitable. At least in most cases, they are not. And so that will help you to control the cost. But then there are also disadvantages to this. So what are those ones? The first one, it's not always easy for the company to understand whether they're getting the value for money. Why? Because you see, if for the most part, you're not dealing with margins, you're not dealing with profits. So how do you know that whatever Because if you're dealing with suppliers, it's easy, right? They'll quote the prices, okay? So 10 suppliers quote a price, and then you pick one. And then based on that, you can know if you're getting your value for money. But in this case, you may not really have that luxury. So the choice here would be for you to first of all figure out how much external suppliers would charge for that thing, and then compare it to the cost you will incur if you're dealing with internal suppliers. That could be a way out of that problem. Number two, when the product or service is created in-house, the company incurs both fixed and variable cost. You see, that is unlike dealing with external suppliers. With external suppliers, you pay them. So as far as you're concerned, that is just a variable cost. With internal suppliers, you not only pay the cost of buying those materials and stuff like that, so that will be variable, you're also paying their supply salaries, you're also paying the fixed cost associated with that department, and so you're incurring both variable and fixed cost. And something else, since no money is exchanging hand with internal suppliers, then they'll just assume this is just another day, okay? Another day at work, which means they may not really be that motivated. So those are some of the advantages and disadvantages as far as internal suppliers are concerned. At this point, obviously, if you have a question, just leave it in the comment section. Also, while you're in the comment section, if you want weekly updates, okay, you can sign up for our news, okay, our newsletter, and you'll be receiving weekly weekly learning material in the form of, just the newsletter, PDF downloads, videos, and all that stuff. Again, link is available in the video description. The reality is that there are a number of reasons why you may want to go with external suppliers, and most of these just happen to be as a result of challenges that are posed by internal suppliers. We're talking about things like high cost of production if the required volumes are low, legislative barriers, okay, for example, if permits are needed for that thing to be produced, skill shortages. So with all that in mind, then what option are you left with? You're left with the internal suppliers as your option. External suppliers as your option, not internal, sorry for that. Now, external suppliers, okay, external suppliers is a supplier that is independent of the organization and provides product or services to the organization. And the reality is that as a procurement professional, a large part of your job, will involve appraising and selecting suppliers, getting into contracts, and managing external suppliers. And so there are a lot of factors that you'll take into account when you're trying to decide, or rather when you're deciding on which external supplier to go with. They're talking about things like purchase price, delivery lead times, quality of product or service, as well as the previous experience of the supplier. And with that, okay, you also need to understand the risk associated with external suppliers. For instance, awarding someone a contract and then they turn out to be bankrupt. So you see, that's a problem to you. So what are the advantages that comes with external suppliers, of which there are a number? So the first one is, since most suppliers are knowledgeable, okay, in their fields, this could potentially lead to innovation that you could be lacking when you're dealing with internal suppliers. Again, if it turns out that the supplier is not just making that thing for you as the customer, okay, probably they're mass manufacturing the thing, then that gives you an easier, that makes it easier for them to control the cost, basically to reduce the cost. Why? Because they can benefit from economies of scale. So they can import, or rather they can buy resources in bulk, benefit from economies of scale, produce that thing, and drive the cost lower, which puts you in a position to actually get a better deal from that supplier. Third one, using an external supplier frees up internal resources that could be used on core activities and creates greater value for the business. Again, if it turns out that the product you want is what the external supplier focuses on, then it means these people don't have a problem with flexibility when it comes to demand. And so that may actually be of advantage to you, okay? And also, finally, number last, if the organization is dealing with production constraints, yet certain items are needed in small volume, then external suppliers will be good at handling that. Now, before we look at the advantages, again, I just want to remind you that if you're interested in receiving daily or rather weekly newsletters, okay, educational newsletters on things relating around business, legal stuff, basically educational stuff, okay, sign up to our newsletter. Link is provided in the video description. And don't worry, we don't spam you with stuff, okay? So link is provided in the video description. Now let's talk about the disadvantages associated with external suppliers. So you're talking about things like costs and risks of transportation issues. Again, there is also the question of relationship. If you need those products for a longer period, then you're going to have to foster a relationship with that suppliers. You can't just have an adversarial sort of transaction where you get something now and then you're done. Because then it means if you go back, you'll have to start afresh. So that means whether you like it or not, you have to figure out how to foster a long-term relationship. And another one, you risk your reputation if the supplier is caught in a scandal. So, internal suppliers, external suppliers. Internal suppliers, when a company is the one that is making something for that particular company. So they choose to make it in-house. External suppliers, when you go out, all right? If there is any question, obviously, do let me know. I'm Moses, and I'll see you in the next video.